Hello and welcome to another episode of Business Dashboard on Citi TV. My name is Bobbie Osei. Coming up on the dashboard, some Ghanaians caution government against any attempt to tax mobile money transactions. Also, 2 years after former Finance Minister Citi assured that the Finatrade Group's 1 billion Citi debt won't affect banks, Royal Bank is blaming the debt for their collapse. Now, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana blames banks for not adhering to proper credit rules in lending to the government. Meanwhile, Managing Director of Carl Bank warns of a collapse of the financial system if confidence is not restored in the banking sector. Well, we will bring you details of these stories as well as exclusive interviews and many more in the next 30 minutes. Let's take our first story. Now, the Interministerial Task Force on Galamsey has adopted what it calls technology-driven strategies to combat illegal mining. Among the technologies is a software called GalamStop, which will manage and monitor the activities of illegal miners. Speaking in Accra today at a forum as part of a roadmap to lift the ban on small-scale mining, the chairman of the Interministerial Task Force Against Illegal Mining, Professor Kwabena Frimpong, said the team hopes the innovation would culminate in the lifting of the ban.
The regulatory agencies, that is Minerals Commission, Environmental Protection Agency, Water Resources Commission, and the Forestry Commissions have not been adequately resourced to carry out their regulatory functions. Measures have been devised that include regular visits to mining concessions, use of remote sensing and satellite imagery and drones, and more importantly, integration of the activities of these regulatory agencies through a computer application we call GalamStop. So the Minerals Commission, EPA, Water Resources Commission, Forestry Commission, our MMDCs will be integrated through this software application. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen,
well, away from that, some Ghanaians have expressed mixed reactions towards government's plan to levy taxes on mobile money transactions. Some argue that the move will deter most people in the informal sector from patronizing mobile money services. Here are some of the patrons of mobile money services speaking to Citi News.
No, I'm not in support of it, because when you go to a merchant to withdraw money, the system take their charges. So if the country or the government has, that will be a double charge on with the subscribers.
Mobile money tax? Oh, that wouldn't be the best. I mean, in terms of financial inclusion in Ghana here, when you look at especially our market women and those in the informal sector, most of them do not have bank accounts. And they rely on this mobile money transaction. Most of them have their monies in their mobile money wallets now. So taxing mobile money transaction, that wouldn't be the best. Already the charges are high. Because if you do, let's say, 1,000 cedis transaction, you will be paying 20 cedis, because I will have to add 10 cedis for the person who is going to withdraw, to be able to withdraw 1,000 exactly. And I will also be charged 10 cedis. So already the charges on the mobile money transactions are very high. So to tax, no, it will mean adding salt to injury. Most people will withdraw even from patronizing the service.
Barrister, I'm in support, yeah, because when they put a tax on it, if they use that, it's going to develop the country. The government will get money to support those free SHS and construction of roads, all those things. Yeah, sure.
I think it's not the right thing, because you know the transactions mobile money vendors really make another that huge to really demand taxes. Sometimes they pay rates as to like the money they really deduct from even the transactions they make are not really that much. So taxing them, I think, is a problem, and the government should do something about it. I don't really approve or support that initiative. If there are other initiatives that can really help curb this, I think it should be done. Taxing me, oh, come on, I'm not going to really buy it.
Well, away from taxes on mobile money, let's focus on the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has indicated that the 2019 budget scheduled to be presented later this year will be heavily driven by the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, including the alleviation of poverty and hunger. To this end, the Finance Ministry has developed a tracking system called Chart of Accounts to ensure budget allocation and expenditure in the public sector are in line with the SDGs. There is more in the following report. Well, we'll bring you that report later on in the bulletin. Now, the Institute of Energy Security is predicting that prices of fuel will go up slightly within the second pricing window in August, spanning today till the end of the month. Now, the prices are expected to go up by about 2%. Jessica Ekwai has more in this report.
The Institute of Energy Security, which predicted the increase, also attributed to the surge in prices of gasoline and gas oil on the world market by 1.28% and 3.04%. According to the research analyst at the IES, Maidad Mohammed, this could also be attributed to the stability of the cedi as well as the drastic reduction in crude oil prices.
So this window, based on our analysis for crude oil prices, it's been reduced drastically from the international market based on some sanctions against Iran, the Saudi Arabia cutting production, with the expectation that it will have increased crude oil prices, but it has rather gotten the negative effect. So for gas oil, which is finished product, gas oil, which is diesel, has gone up by some 1.84%. Gasoline has gone up by 3.04%.
Fuel prices have remained stable for the past 2 months due to the stable prices of products on the world market. Maidad also tells Citi Business News prices remained unchanged due to the constant intervention from the National Petroleum Authority. He, however, says the NPA could introduce the price stabilization and recovery levy mechanisms again to prevent a hike in fuel prices. When this is done, price of fuel will remain unchanged again for the second pricing window.
Well, for this particular window, we are looking at 1.5% to 2%. And the increment reflections across the WMT, that is if it doesn't come in with a price stabilization and recovery levy intervention. It will just be based on how competitive the market is because of deregulation. As we do almost every time, the only problem is that MPA has been applying the fund in an unpredictable manner. You don't know how it appears like when people make a lot of cry out there, then MPA comes and intervenes. So where increments are coming in, and then we come in with our projections, we do first and foremost alert MPA that we are following the proceedings, and also to alert the public who often have disagreements with fuel attendants about price changes because it's normally changed without their analysis.
Currently, a litre of petrol and diesel are both selling at 4 cedis 85 pesos at the various pumps across the country.
You're still watching the Business Dashboard on Citi TV. My name is Bobbie Osei. When we return after the break, 2 years after former Finance Minister Tekbe assured that the Finatage Group's 1 billion cedi debt to banks won't affect the banks, Royal Bank is, blaming the debt for its collapse. We'll bring you details when we return.
For regular news checks as they unfold. 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and incisive analysis. It's The Big Issue, your preferred Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program on Citi TV. Tune in this and every Saturday at 9 a.m. and hear the newsmakers discuss the top issues for the week.
At that time, Charlotte was complex. I'm not defending Charlotte. I'm talking about the way we behave like hypocrites and ostriches in this country. At that time, she was a perfect person.
It's The Biggest You with Stella Madonu on Citi TV. This and every Saturday at 9 a.m.
It's good to have you back on the Business Dashboard. Let's bring you some more local business stories. The managing director of Cal Bank, Frank Edu Jr., is warning that Ghana's financial sector could face serious challenges if steps are not taken to correct the current troubles to restore public confidence. This follows reports received by Citi Business News that local banks are currently contending with panic withdrawals as a result of reports suggesting that all local banks are struggling to meet the 400 million cedi capital requirements, hence may be merged or have their licenses revoked. Already, erstwhile Royal Bank, in a response to the Bank of Ghana today, has said the collapse of UT Bank and Capital Bank created a situation that encouraged panic withdrawals at its bank. But speaking on the issue, Frank Edu Jr. cautioned that it is important to restore confidence in the banking system to save the financial sector from collapse.
There's no reason for a lack of confidence in the local bank. But the thing is that if the market or something the market sentiments are not managed, then you can have an immediate impression of lack of confidence. And that does not only affect local banks, it affects all banks. So we must all be very careful how we motivate the rhetoric. You know, if you're not circumspect in our reportage, in our rhetoric, etc., we will affect all banks. It's very important that the confidence is maintained in the banking sector, not just the local bank.
Now, despite assurances given by former Finance Minister Seth Terkper that a debt owed banks by Trade Group will not create any challenges, it appears the assurance has failed as Royal Bank is partially blaming the development as a cause for the revocation of the bank's license. Erstwhile Royal Bank, in response to the Bank of Ghana after it was consolidated with other banks, pointed out that the 1 billion cedi debt owed to banks also affected its operations. Anita Arthur has more in this report.
The Ministry of Finance on November 25, 2016 gave a strong assurance that Ghana's banking sector will remain strong and effective despite claims of an imminent collapse due to the huge debts owed banks by Trade, a commodities company. The Trade group of companies, which specialized in agri-commodities at the time, was indebted to about 20 banks to the tune of about 1 billion cedis and has since declared bankruptcy. The amounts were said to be almost half of the 2.6 billion cedis stated capital of the entire banking industry as at the time. Here is former Finance Minister Seth Terkper on the Citi Breakfast Show in 2016, giving assurance that the debts of Trade will not lead to a collapse of the banking sector.
I would urge you to take not just the MPC report, but to take other reports that are on the Bank of Ghana website, which shows, the non-performing loan situation in the country. Yes, it did increase, I believe, to about 9% or so, but it was between 5 and 7%. And it was because of the insistence of Bank of Ghana that the bank should start provisioning for these loans, including the public sector, loans, which is why, we are doing the restructuring for VRA backed by the levies and others. So I think that is relevant. It's also important to go to the source and look at what has been the trend before we put out some of these things.
He, however, questioned whether or not the banks did due diligence before advancing such huge funds to Trade.
Yes. That yes, there's an issue with Trade. I just confirmed to you that Bank of Ghana, as a regulator for the banking institutions, is the one who is handling it. And I can also confirm that, did the banks do due diligence, appropriate due diligence, before that exposure? I think these are some of the issues which, and I asked that question even with respect to VRA. I asked them, don't just assume that VRA is owned by the state and the state, would come, and take over the facility and you won't do your due diligence. No, because they are established as state-owned enterprises. So I'm saying that, those types of businesses are things which Bank of Ghana is clamping down on, is insisting. In fact, one of the reasons these things are coming out is that it's insisting that the bank should provision.
Some of the banks dragged Finatrade to court in 2015 in a bid to have their monies recovered, but they are yet to achieve that aim. Following the consolidation of Royal Bank with 4 others to form the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited, it is now blaming the government for contributing to the bank's woes and subsequent revocation of its license. The bank believes it wouldn't have faced the challenges if government had paid a debt of 150 million.
Well, staying on the subject of loans, a former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Emmanuel Asedu Mante, has blamed the lack of adherence to proper credit rules for the high exposure of banks to government's indebtedness. He explains that most banks continue to offer loans even at a time where they are unable to track non-performing ones. Mr. Asedu Mante's comment follows claims by the Royal Bank that its inability to recapitalize leading to the revocation of its license has partly been due to government's failure to pay an outstanding 150 million cedi debt. Pius Dugu has been speaking to the former Deputy Governor and now reports.
According to the former Deputy Governor, banks are mandated to control their exposure to risk associated with loans they grant to clients, whether in the private or public sectors. As a result, a bank's inability to pull the brakes when it detects the rise in non-performing loans, Mr. Mante believes, should be put squarely at the feet of its board of directors.
You have monies out there, giving out loans, it's not being repaid, and they continue giving. That obviously is not a responsible board. So to say that you're giving money to Finatrade and government and it's not being paid, and therefore you should continue giving, that is not the way you run a bank. Who gave the money in the first place? At the time they were giving the loan, didn't they know all this? That governments getting money from government delays? They knew. If they didn't know, then they say ignorance is no defense. You're giving money to somebody, you have to do due diligence on the person or that entity, right? And you do your risk assessment, and you give a term sheet to the one you're giving the money to. So if the money is not being repaid, you can't stand somewhere and say that, no, for this one, he delays in payment. It's no excuse.
The Royal Bank cited the government for owing it to the tune of 150 million cedis, while its share of Finatrade's debt stood at 70 million cedis. The Bank of Ghana's banking sector report for May this year, for instance, put total NPLs attributed to the private sector at 90.7%, while that of the public sector is estimated at 9.3%. Contractors have also been greatly affected by the accumulated arrears from undertaking government projects. This has also made it difficult for them to meet their obligations to their respective banks. Meanwhile, Mr. Asedu Mante has refuted claims that the Banking Supervision Department should be blamed for the recent development within the banking sector. He argues that the department's role least affects the eventual failure of a bank to revamp its operations to meet its obligations.
Sometimes, you give a directive, cease and desist order to a bank because maybe what you see in the returns are not going right. You go back a year later and the same things are being done. Sometimes financial penalties are imposed on the bank because they are not observing some of the rules and regulations or provisions in the law. Sometimes the whole board and management is invited to Bank of Ghana for Bank of Ghana to express disquiet about what is going on. And he talked about liquidity support. Why would central bank give liquidity support if it's not been monitoring what is happening in the bank? For the central bank even to give liquidity support, it means they are aware the bank is experiencing liquidity problems. But the central bank then has to withdraw alliances because there's been one return showing that the bank is not meeting liquidity requirements.
Now, away from that, persons living with disability constitute about 3 million of Ghana's population. However, These people have just about 1% space in the formal working sector. Now, the rest would have to either learn a vocation or beg on the street to make a living. So how do persons living with disability survive as business people in the economy? Nanoyi Ankra has been finding out.
Without a proper national scheme to train persons living with disability, a lot of these people have had to rely on non-governmental organizations to access some vocational training, including sewing, hairdressing, shoemaking or art, in order to fend for themselves and their families. But the dilemma falls after the training when persons with physical deformity need to raise funds to establish a business on their own. To John Ekusechi, a 31-year-old shoemaker, his almost 4-year training was at a point in time useless.
Because we don't have support and we don't have any money, so if we stayed it 3 years, after 3 years you have to go and open your own shop or establish yourself. But normally we don't have any support, so when we came out, because of the support and the money, we find it difficult.
John is not alone. Deborah sews a dansoman here in Accra. For her, a proposal from a friend saved her from abandoning the skills that took her 3 years to acquire.
John, one of my friends, she also was interested, so I joined her.
Okay, so you tell me, narrate to me, when you completed, what happened?
So, it wasn't easy for me because I don't have anyone who helped me.
For the two of them, their inability to operate wholly affects the marketing and selling of their products.
There are so many seamstresses here. When you take your dress to them, as per straight dress, they will take 40 Ghana. But for me, if I charge them as a 40 Ghana, they will not pay. But they think a disability person, what are you going to do with them? And so normally they give me 20 cedis.
We are begging our parents and the government that we can do something, and we know something to do, but we need help. If they help us, we will not go for begging.
To the few customers they have, business would be better for persons living with disability if people trust their capabilities.
Ejuma oye no, onu ani ejuma wo suenti no pa ejuma. Debi wo kra na ejuma no bana dos won so a otumi da. No aye night, no dey aye ejuma wo so oye.
But she is not failure. When he told you to come this time, the time that you came, the thing is already done.
So how can persons living with disability be key stakeholders in the national economy? Alexander Tete is president of the Center for Employment of Persons with Disability.
It's very difficult. Persons with disabilities want to contribute to the growth of the economy, and a lot more are doing it, but they need support to be able to contribute meaningfully to the economy. Currently, it's difficult for a person with disability who has skills to sustain his business, and that is why a lot of them are begging on the street. If you do a survey of those begging on the street, about 90% have gained skills. So giving them skills is not a challenge. Most of them have gone to the rehabilitation centers, have trained tailoring, craft making, carpentry, and shoemaking and all that. But the setup, I would wish that all the rehabilitation centers, the graduates, will be given some startups.
Such a business as a person living with disability is not easy, as clients doubt their capabilities and the quality of the product they produce. For persons like Deborah and John, all they need is a little capital to boost their business in order to contribute to the growth of the economy. For Citi News, I am Nana Oyankra.
You're still watching the Business Dashboard on Citi TV. When we return from the break, we'll tell you about a recruitment scam involving CocoaBot, as well as the latest international business story. Stay with us.
the weekend sporting action happened, we will bring it to you here on Scorecard. Every goal, every dunk, every punch, the winning strides, and the winning volleys.
International media, he said, look, wait, sit and wait. Let me have a meal with my people. And I think that's the same cool, it's the same organization he brings to the field every time I've seen him play. He looks to me like somebody who has played over 50 caps already. Okay. But this guy has barely played over 25 caps for the national team.
All of the weekend's action in one place. Scorecard, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. prompt on Citi TV.
You're welcome back to the Business Dashboard on Citi TV. I am Bobbie Osei. Let's focus on Cocoa Board for our next story. Now, Cocoa Board has urged the public to disregard an announcement circulating on social media platforms purporting to have come from the company, announcing various vacant positions for interested qualified persons to apply for postings to the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana and other Cocoa Board substations across the country latest by 31st. According to Cocoa Board, it is absolutely false that Cocoa Board is on recruitment exercise. It said that the announcement is an orchestrated and mischievous attempt by some unscrupulous individuals to deceive the unsuspecting public. We therefore wish to advise the general public to disregard the announcement in its entirety, the statement said. Well, moving on to our next story, the latest from the international front. First Bank of Nigeria Limited led 12 local banks to sign a 200 billion naira loan facility for MTN Nigeria. The other banks involved in the deal are Union Bank of Nigeria PLC, Citibank, Diamond Bank, and Ecobank, Fidelity Bank PLC, First City Monument Bank, FSDH Merchant Bank, Rand Merchant Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, Stanbic IBTC Bank, and the United Bank of Africa PLC. The facility is to enable the telecommunications company to deepen and broaden its provision of ICT services in Nigeria. The medium-term loan facility, which is structured with a 2-year moratorium and a repayment plan of 5 years, was signed by the representatives of all the 12 banks and the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria, Mr. Fedi Moman. The agreement was formally signed at the law offices of Aluko and Oye Bode in Lagos in the presence of key partners, stakeholders, and the media, and was supervised by the law firms FBN Quest acted as the facility agent. Now, losses at Uber are mounting even as it reported a 51% annual increase in income from its taxi app business. Now, income from its global taxi businesses, once it had paid its drivers, rose to $2.7 billion in the last quarter. But the cost of expansion plans into areas like bike sharing and Uber Eats, its food delivery business, has meant losses have grown rapidly. The company said adjusted losses in the last 3 months rose 32% on the previous quarter to $404 million. Dara Khosrowshahi, Uber chief executive, said the company was continuing to grow at an impressive rate for a business of our scale. And finally, smartphone brand Motorola has been criticized for revealing a shameless copy of the iPhone X as its new model. Now, many phone makers have copied the look of the iPhone X, which has a smaller bezel around the screen and a notch at the top that houses a camera. And also, however, reviewers said the new Motorola P30 was a brazen and egregious ripoff of Apple's flagship device. Lenovo, which owns the Motorola brand, has not yet responded to the criticism. Motorola was a pioneer in the mobile phone industry, but its sales fell in the smartphone era and its handset division was sold to Google In 2012, the division was then sold to Chinese computer firm Lenovo in 2014, where it has continued to produce smartphones running the Android operating system. And well, that's it for Business Dashboard for today, live on Citi TV. My name is Bobbie Osei. For more news, do visit citibusinessnews.com.